If we can't save the cutest animal in the world, what happens to the rest? Well, it's good to be back, but what a time we have had here on the east coast of Australia. You all know that we've had floods. Finally, with over 200 video clips that I had taken, I can put together my flood diary for both floods, February and March 2022. What a time we've had. Floods, intensive care, hospital admission, and floods again. Let's go. Hey, are you one of the 60% watching this video that haven't subscribed yet? Fix that right now. Hit that button. I would like to acknowledge the Widjabul Waible people of the Bundjalung Nation, which is where I live, work and play, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Koala Gardens is a wildlife sanctuary on private land. Subscribe to help me bring koalas to you and like this to help me bring them to the world. I'm lucky enough to live in the koala's backyard with a wild and free colony in Australia. Check out my Patreon options and come chat on my public Discord server. I'm Katrina and I'm passionate about saving koalas. We'll start off by having a look at what happened with flood number 1. Now, the thing is, this all really started months and months beforehand because we've had so much rain that the ground was already water laden. That was my path down to area 10. The rain started on Wednesday the 23rd of February and then we had a few days break. You can see Bullet's wet, he's not really caring about it, but that very first day of rain began some flash flooding and you can see great weather for frogs. That's the drain beside my driveway after just one day of rain. And that popping sound is the frog. Really wild the amount of water that moved through here just in that first lot. This is Bloodwood Gully, feeds down into the little dam, and I have never seen those rocks around the edge of the dam before. That's how much it rained. Of course, koalas just take it all in their stride. There's Bullet up in the top of a tree having a good feed, wet as in. Because that first lot of rain was quite short-lived, you can see that Bullet dried out quite quickly. But then on only the 26th of February, 3 days later, the rain set in again mid-morning. I went into town to buy some supplies only about an hour and a half after the rain started, and I nearly didn't get back home because the roads were flash flooding. The way I've put this video together is I've actually got some footage that is from the house and just around the property, some footage that is looking directly east and some footage that is looking to the south. So we kind of jump backwards and forwards in time a little bit, but you can see the rain pouring down outside my kitchen window, and if you keep an eye on the bottom left corner, then you will see the date stamps that give you an idea of what's happening. Getting around the property, even with a four-wheel drive quad bike, became treacherous because of the amount of water rushing through and just taking things out. Now this is looking directly east. There's Bullet in the rain, doing things the koala way. Tuck your head in, and the minute the rain eases up for a moment, get out and fill your belly. Where we're looking down now directly east, there is normally no water down there at all. However, this was originally the Tuckian swamp. So no doubt when there's rain, the water just pools here and takes a long time to drain away. It was actually quite a comfort for me to see helicopters regularly flying over, checking on everybody. It's Thursday now and it's 3 days since I lost power. You can hear thunder rumbling. The rain's coming back today. It's, so 3 days I've had no power, no water, no internet. Phone services kind of come and go. It's really scary knowing that they can't even get through to assess the damage, to attempt to see if they can get electricity back and going again. They can't even get through. And I'm one of the lucky ones. People were rescued off the roofs of their houses. Wildlife and cows, farm animals just were swept out to the ocean, and people lost their lives as well. So I'm feeling very grateful in the midst of feeling so much trepidation. We just don't know what's next. Because I lost power right back at the beginning of the whole thing, I also lost water. Fortunately, I can access my downpipes, and when we did get little bits of rain, I would be madly bucketing water in, filling up containers to flush the toilet with, filling up filter jugs to be able to have some drinking water, and just doing the best I could. It wasn't enough. Looking east now, you can just see it's just become a lake that I'm looking down over. And the sogginess of the koalas, you could just about pick him up and wring him out, couldn't you? And then all of a sudden the sky cleared and you can see helicopters flying over, and yet even with the skies becoming clear, the water continued to rise, but the koalas began to dry out. Now we're up to the 3rd of March, so this is now 5 days since the rain started, several days since it stopped, and the amount of water laying here is really quite phenomenal. Bullet, of course, knows his way around, and he just kept behaving completely the usual, while the helicopters, 13 different helicopters looking after us. This is looking east again, and you can see the water's coming up even more. Of course, that car didn't get through anywhere. These are just local neighbours moving about, checking the landscape out. And the bullet, of course, is staying up as high as he can most of the time, which is smart. By Friday the 4th, we've still got just water everywhere, higher than ever, because the waters still flow down from the hills and keep filling all of the low areas up. Beautiful bullet in the early morning light. And the 7th of March was the last day I was able to get any footage, because it was on the early hours of the morning of the 8th of March that I became seriously ill and ended up in hospital with a blocked kidney and a septicemia infection as a result. Bullet, of course, totally oblivious to everything that's going on except his own feeding and sleeping needs. On the 14th of March, now a week later, you can see that there's still a lot of water down there, but it's no longer a lake. Bullet is looking very dried out and fluffy and quite happy with himself. This was him when he greeted me when I got back from hospital. Over the next days, things continued to dry out, and I guess we were starting to feel like we were going to get past all of this. Now we'll look directly south, and after just one day of rain, look at all the water on the road, and yet a few days later, after the next deluge, you can see the entire thing is just going completely under. No way anyone can get through on a tired vehicle. And the next day, even though the rain had basically stopped, the water levels even higher. Now, of course, this is when I lost my power, and the problem was the power lines went down right down there to the south under that water somewhere. So there was no way anything was going to be able to get in to assess, let alone fix that power issue. We're now looking down through the edge of my rainforest, and that arrow is pointing to where the fence line is, the boundary, and then you can see where the water has started and the road is under. But I just want to make the point that it kind of looks like it came quite close to my boundary, but in fact it didn't really, because it becomes quite a steep slope. Now look at this building. This building ended up becoming my main measuring tool. Look at where the water's up to on the windows there. If you look at how steeply those power lines go down, you get a bit of an idea of how high up I am. When we look at this building again and I zoom in, you can see that the water is up past the lowest windowsill, and thankfully helicopters are still checking on us, and that road is deeply, deeply under. Now we move into the 2nd of March. Again, you can see just huge deluge. So much water down there. It's just unbelievable. I've lived here 12 years and never seen anything like that down there. Let's check my building that I'm using to measure the flood water with. Just phenomenal to think what those poor owners are coming home to. And here's another few houses that are down there, and you can actually see 2 cars under the carport there, and unfortunately the water's taken them. I'm now standing up on one of the highest points of the property, up well above the house and the shed, and just having a little look down over the expanse of that water. And yet, Bullet looks like everything's just hunky-dory, peachy, perfectly normal. Yeah, lay back, just hand me a grape. He takes no notice of the helicopters checking on us. Now the next day, 3rd of March, once again, still huge levels of water. Those houses down there, my heart just breaks for the people who own those places. And I was really beginning to realise just how lucky I am. You can see the water has actually gone down just a little bit, and you can see owners of some of those houses back in the distance in a boat going out to survey the damage, but also they actually had a dog at one of those houses and they were going there to feed the dog each day. We can see that the water level has come down. It's just underneath the cars now, not up over the bottom of the cars. And again, Bullet just doing his thing. Wouldn't it be wonderful to not be aware of the horrible destruction that has actually been happening around the area and just living your usual life? It's hard to describe just how comforting I actually found it to know that while I was isolated, these helicopters were checking on us all. 4th of March, very early morning, and there's still water everywhere, but it is going down. Now when we look at that building that I've been measuring against, we can see a significant reduction in the water. Same with these other houses that I've been looking at. Can you see there's cows there? How did they survive? Not to say that there's not a lot of water out there, and of course the road is still completely impassable. whilst the water level is dropping, it's obvious that it's going to be days yet before anybody would be actually driving anything through here. And on the 5th of March, I found that this is when it seemed like there was just so little happening. Those fellas in that boat told me that when they'd be driving out there in the boats, there would be water bubbling out of the ground, and the sound of it was as loud as the boat motor. So the water's going down, but very, very slowly. I've never seen the water up that high or take as long to go down. It was really distressing when the rain started coming back again in the end of that first week in March there, and it's just coming down while we're still trying to get over the fact that you can see the road now, the water's going down, and yet the rain was back. We're beginning to see tops of fence posts, tops of little trees and things that are planted. Bullet's wet again, but he doesn't care. You can just see him nestled right in there in that tallowood, munching away. And on the 7th of March, we actually finally began to see some true difference, and I could finally get through the main road to Lismore, which is something I'm so grateful for, because it was on the 8th of March that the ambulance had to drive that road out and get me. Not this road, Lismore's to the north of me, this is to the south of me, and you can see that some of the vehicles are starting to go through. Matilda had been away for the first few days after I came home from hospital, but there she is, she's back. And on the 24th of March, looking down, you can see the road is clear. All of the land is, well, it's actually very wet if you walk on it, but there you go. Now all of a sudden, flood number 2 hit. Early morning, just before the rain started coming down on the 26th, and on the 27th already, there's the water starting to pool up and rise. This was just underneath Bullet's favourite trees. Look at just how wet the ground is. My driveway is overflowing yet again. I haven't been able to clean it up and dig it out because I've been in hospital and have a stent draining my kidney. So I just have to kind of sit and watch all of this unfolding, and it's unbelievable. Bullet's eating away happily, but he's back to being a koala so wet you could nearly wring him out. Now the road is not completely under, but you can see the road is quite flooded, and by this point the levee bank in Lismore, the water has overtopped it and flooded right through Lismore again. On the first day after the flooding, you can see that they've blocked off half the road, and so people were still able to get through if their car was tall enough. The water's quite deep, but a lot of people with larger cars are willing to take the risk, even though it's really dangerous because you don't know if the road has washed out under that water. But people are desperate to be getting through to help each other and be cleaning things out. So there's actually a surprising amount of traffic that's coming through, even though the roads are blocking off, because everybody knows that that road is going to get blocked off even more because the water is still moving down. And you can see the water pooling everywhere, and you can see just how wet Bullet is. Just amazing. I barely slept at all this night because the entire night was just pouring rain, wind and lightning. This guy hasn't been light for very long, so I haven't been able to go out yet and start checking for koalas. The rain has eased off significantly. The winds have even eased off to a degree, but it's still pretty wet and miserable out there. Fortunately, I have a gas stove and I have a gorgeous stovetop coffee maker. I've got some almond milk that's warming up to make a nice cup of coffee. Big saucepan full of cooking water. I'm just kind of filming this to show just what the wind's like, and from what I was hearing on the radio this morning, there's a lot of places where trees have come down, pulled power lines down, so it's very likely that's why I've lost power again this time. Not a lot of comfort. And then all of a sudden, I found Hugo. Just a moment away, like just meters away from where I was. I know his bottom looks wet, but let me tell you, it is so wet out there. Hey buddy. I'll just zoom back out and then try and show you. So that is where he is considered between area 9 and area 15, and then we're looking down at that's area 9. This is area 10 on this side of the path, and then it goes down into area 11. If I go back, there's the tree in the surf release and all the flooded area I was just looking down at. There he is. You see Bullet? In a tallow wood. I'm so pleased because yesterday he climbed up high into those red gums that are just blowing about like mad. But now he's in one of the smaller tallow woods, which I am certain is much safer. It was certainly a comfort to me to be able to at least see Bullet every day, no matter what was happening. Because when we look at the amount of water and what people were going through to try and get to their places, to try and help people, it was just a wild time. It must be really difficult when you really know that you have things that you need to do or loved ones that you want to help, and you take the risk of driving through floodwaters, because in these floods we end up with so many people getting rescued, and everywhere I drive around, even now getting to Lismore in the different ways I can get through, there are just ruined cars just everywhere. There's our boy Hugo again. He's moved into another tree, it's a different tree to what he was in last time. Now let's perspective this. Zoom out. You can see I'm sitting on my quad bike. Turn, and there I am. That's where I've just been looking down at and filming it. And our beautiful Miss Matilda trying to dry out a little bit up high, catching a bit of breeze. And anyone who doesn't realise that Bullet is the coolest koala in the world just does not know the meaning of cool. And Bullet really knows how to make sure he airs everything out, because we don't want any musty bits. Oh no, we do not. Still a lot of water lying. I mean, it's going to take a long time for this to go down because the ground is just waterlogged. So it actually looks like there's more water on the road than there was yesterday. And look at Bullet. He's being the tree. 1st of April now, so unbelievable that this all started in February and now we're into April, and you can see how far under the road has gone this second time around. I would have judged the road not to be passable, but you just cannot stop some people. You can see this fella going through. This is all the water lying to the east of the road, and yet there's actually a little dry patch just when you get around that bend. Still got helicopters checking on us all the time. And 2nd of April, not much change in the water, but a little bit of change down on the road. You can see that the sides of the road are no longer joining up the road water to the rest. I tried to get through into town, and that water is not passable at all. I had to go a long way around and was able to get some free mold treatment, natural treatment that is graciously being supplied to the area. 3rd of April, and you can see it's still just water everywhere, but the road has cleared significantly, and particularly by driving down the middle of the road, it's way easier to get through. You can see that house, you can see that it's actually up on stumps. So it tells you how high that water was back at the beginning of March. And just get a load of bullet. Talk about King Slob. Thanks very much. I'm all right sitting in my tree. Wouldn't know that there's anything else going on. Koalas are the best animals in the world, aren't they? And now we're well into April. Today is the 4th of April when I'm completing this video diary of the floods, and I have been contacted today by the hospital, and I will get all of my kidney issues sorted out on this Thursday the 7th, which is fantastic. It will be a relief to get that sorted. But everybody in this area, we are just sitting with quite a high anxiety level because the forecast is to have above average rainfalls through April, May and until the end of June, and possibly even be back in a flood situation by next week. So we're just really hoping that that's not going to happen. And all I can say, now that you have made it through to the end of yet another Koala Gardens video, is that climate change is here. There is no question about it. There is no what if or maybe or whatever. It's here and we're living it. Thanks for watching and being with me. Thanks for visiting Koala Gardens. Did you hit the like button? Now before you go, there's lots more great video to see, and make sure you've subscribed and hit that notification bell.